The galaxy had grown used to the rule of the Empire. For thousands of years, the great fleets of the Imperial Navy had crossed the stars, bringing hundreds of worlds under its command. Planets bent their knees not because they loved the Empire, but because they feared it. The Empire's warships were unmatched, its armies endless, and its rulers cruelly efficient. Yet in the quiet corners of the galaxy, strange whispers began to rise. Merchants spoke of odd signals echoing through the deep void. Miners claimed their scanners picked up ghostly transmissions near abandoned star systems, and some captains swore they saw huge shadows moving where no fleet should exist. At first, the Empire ignored these rumors. After all, the galaxy was full of superstitions. Every year, frightened voices claimed that monsters, lost civilizations, or mythical fleets would appear. Usually, nothing came of it, but this time the whispers carried a name that was almost forbidden to speak in the imperial courts: humanity. Long ago, humans had been just another young species in the galaxy. They had risen fast, perhaps too fast for their own good. Unlike many, they had not begged for protection from stronger empires. They had built their own fleets, their own weapons, and their own alliances. They were proud and fiercely independent. That spirit had made them dangerous. The Empire remembered the wars fought against humanity. Even now, centuries later, scars remained. Whole sectors had been burned during those battles. Billions had died. But the strangest part was not how humanity had fought. It was how they had vanished. When defeat seemed certain, humanity had not surrendered. They had not begged for mercy. They had not even signed a peace treaty. Instead, their fleets had disappeared into the dark, their colonies sealed, their worlds silent. It was as if they had chosen to vanish from history rather than bow to the Empire. For generations, no one had seen them again. Many believed humanity had gone extinct. That was what the Empire wanted the galaxy to believe. Yet now, centuries later, rumors returned. On the distant planet of Caltheris, dockworkers spoke of a patrol ship that had gone missing near the Sol system, the old heart of humanity. At first, the Imperial governor laughed. Ships sometimes vanished in the void. Pirates, accidents, spatial storms, there were many explanations. But then, weeks later, fragments of the patrol vessel were discovered drifting back across the border. The wreckage carried scorch marks, deep, violent, and unmistakably artificial. These were not the burns of asteroids or natural radiation. These were the scars of weapons fire. When the fragments were brought to the sector fleet admiral, he studied them in silence. The marks were unfamiliar. They did not match any modern imperial weaponry, nor any alien arsenal known in the records. But deep in the archives, long untouched, the admiral found a match. The weapon's signature was ancient, older than his own family's history. It was human. High above the core world of Aloria, the Imperial High Council gathered in a chamber of crystal and steel. Alien nobles, generals, and admirals argued loudly. To them, the idea was absurd. Humanity was gone. It had been gone for centuries. How could they possibly return? The reports are false, one noble declared, his silver robes shimmering under the council lights. This is the work of pirates. Perhaps rebels seek to frighten us with old myths. Another slammed his clawed hand against the table. Myths? Tell that to the crews who vanished. Tell that to the wreckage burned by weapons that should not exist. You would ignore this threat because it is inconvenient to you. Silence followed, for in the hearts of even the most arrogant nobles, fear lingered. They all knew the old stories. Humanity was different. They were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest. But when they fought, they did not stop. They adapted. They endured. That was why the Empire had crushed them with such fury long ago. The humans were not simply a rival. They were a warning. On the outer rim among the stars near humanity's old territories, the Empire dispatched fleets to investigate. Commanders expected to find nothing. Perhaps a few outlaws, perhaps some forgotten colony world, but not what they truly found. The first fleet arrived near the ruins of an abandoned human station. It had been lifeless for centuries. Dust and silence filled its halls. The Imperial scouts reported nothing unusual. But as they prepared to leave, their long-range sensors detected something vast moving in the darkness beyond the system's edge. A shape emerged from the void. It was enormous, larger than any Imperial warship. Its hull was dark, scarred by age and battles long past. Its engines burned with steady, patient light. Along its sides, weapons gleamed like sleeping dragons. It was a dreadnought, an Earth dreadnought. The Imperial fleet panicked. They opened fire with everything they had, missiles, plasma, beams. But the human warship moved with terrifying precision. Its shields flared, absorbing blow after blow. Then, with a single barrage, it answered. The Imperial fleet ceased to exist. The news spread quickly. Though the Empire tried to suppress it, whispers always found their way into the streets, the markets, the taverns, and the homes of the galaxy. Merchants carried the tale. Refugees repeated it in hushed voices. Soldiers told each other in fear. They are back, they whispered. The humans are back. In the shadows of the galaxy, more signals began to stir. Long-range scans picked up movements of massive fleets. Old colonies, once dead, flickered with lights again. Mysterious transmissions carried a single emblem, a blue and green world, half covered by oceans, half by land, Earth. The galaxy trembled. The Empire had spent centuries teaching its people that humanity was nothing but ash and myth. But myths had a way of surviving. And now those myths moved through the stars with metal, fire, and fury. In the High Council chamber, the Emperor himself finally spoke. His voice was calm, but beneath the calm was unease. If the humans have returned, he said, then the galaxy will remember why we feared them. Far away, deep within the darkness, the Dreadnought fleet gathered. Hundreds of colossal warships floated in silence, their hulls ancient but powerful. Their captains stood at their stations, watching, waiting. For generations they had hidden, building, repairing, preparing. Now, at last, the time had come. Humanity was ready to step out of the shadows, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Empire did not sleep after the first dreadnought appeared. Entire fleets were put on alert. Governors sent endless reports to the High Council. On the streets of imperial cities, whispers grew into open fear. For centuries, the Empire had promised safety under its rule. It had crushed rebellions, silenced rivals, and erased memories of past enemies. But now, stories spread faster than the censors could erase them. Every world repeated the same tale. The humans had returned. On the throne world of Aloria, the Emperor gathered his top admirals and nobles in the war chamber. The room glowed with holographic stars, each marked with fleets and territories. At the center, a red circle pulsed near the edge of the map. The Sol system, once the home of humanity. Admiral Krevan, a veteran with steel-gray skin and eyes as sharp as blades, stood before the council. We have confirmed reports, he said. The wreckage we recovered shows weapons of human design. The patrol fleet sent to investigate has been completely destroyed. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some nobles scoffed. Others looked pale, their claws or tendrils twitching nervously. Impossible, one noble hissed. Humans were wiped out. They could not build fleets this size in silence. They had centuries, Krevan replied coldly. And perhaps they never truly lost. Perhaps they only hid. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. Do not spread fear, Admiral. Fear weakens loyalty. The humans are a shadow of the past. We will crush them once again. But even as he spoke, the Emperor felt a flicker of doubt. Deep in his memory, he remembered the old stories told in secret. Stories of humans who never surrendered, who turned defeat into survival, and survival into strength. Far from the shining halls of Aloria, deep in the quiet of the Outer Rim, the Empire's fleets moved. The 7th Imperial Armada was dispatched to the border world's nearest Sol. Thousands of ships crossed the stars in perfect formation, their engines blazing. These fleets were meant to intimidate, to remind the galaxy that the Empire's power was unmatched. But among the crews, unease lingered. Soldiers whispered in their bunks. Pilots checked their weapons twice. Captains read the reports of destroyed fleets and wondered if their ships would be next. The 7th Armada arrived at the edge of a dead system once claimed by humans. At first, the system seemed empty, nothing but drifting rocks and the ruins of forgotten stations. Then, the shadows moved. At first, it seemed like nothing more than asteroids drifting in the dark. But then the asteroids aligned. Engines flickered to life, and one by one massive shapes emerged. Dreadnoughts, hundreds of them. Their hulls were scarred by age, but their weapons glowed with terrible light. They did not broadcast signals. They did not announce their presence. They simply existed, silent and massive, watching. The commander of the 7th Armada gave the order to prepare for battle. But before his words could spread through the fleet, a single human transmission cut across every channel. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a simple message, spoken in a calm human voice. "We are awake." Then the human dreadnoughts advanced. The battle was not a battle, it was a storm. Imperial ships opened fire in endless volleys. Missiles streaked across the void. Plasma beams cut through the darkness. But the dreadnoughts moved with precision, their shields glowing as they absorbed the fire. Then with terrifying calm, they responded. Their weapons were unlike anything the Empire had seen in centuries. Great beams of white energy cut through battleships as if they were paper. Missiles streaked with impossible speed, striking targets before defenses could react. Imperial formations crumbled. Admirals shouted orders, but their fleets dissolved into chaos. Entire cruisers vanished in bursts of light. Carriers tried to retreat, only to be cut down by focused human fire. And through it all, the human dreadnoughts advanced, slow and unstoppable, like ancient titans. When the battle ended, the void was filled with drifting wreckage. The 7th Armada, one of the Empire's proudest fleets, was gone. But the human dreadnoughts did not pursue the survivors. They did not claim the system. They simply turned and vanished once more into the dark. News of the destruction reached the Imperial capital within days. The High Council erupted in panic. Some demanded immediate retaliation with all available forces. Others whispered of peace negotiations. But one truth was impossible to ignore. The humans were not just back. They were stronger than anyone had imagined. In the streets of Imperial worlds, citizens began to question their rulers. If the Empire could not protect them, what use was its rule? On distant colony worlds, where rebellion always simmered, banners of resistance were raised. And on slave worlds, whispers turned to songs. Songs of human warships breaking chains and burning masters. The galaxy was changing. Meanwhile, within the hidden command decks of the Dreadnought fleet, humanity prepared. Captain Arik Hale, a man born long after Earth's disappearance from galactic memory, stood on the bridge of the Invictus, the lead dreadnought. His uniform was plain, his face scarred, but his eyes burned with quiet determination. For generations, his ancestors had kept the secret. Hidden bases in the dark void had built ships in silence. Hidden colonies had trained soldiers in shadow. Humanity had not died. They had endured, waiting for the right moment to return. Now, as he gazed at the stars filled with Imperial wreckage, Hale spoke softly to his crew. "The galaxy thinks us ghosts," he said. "Let them. We will not conquer with fear. We will return with strength. We will remind them what it means to be human." His words spread through the fleet across thousands of men and women who had trained for this moment all their lives. They were not fighting for revenge. They were not fighting for empire. They were fighting for survival, for freedom, for the right to exist without kneeling. The humans had come back not as conquerors, but as liberators. In the weeks that followed, human dreadnoughts began to appear across the galaxy. They struck without warning, smashing Imperial fleets, then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. But more importantly, they targeted the Empire's slave worlds. Chains were broken. Prison camps were destroyed. Entire populations cheered as human soldiers stepped onto their soil. For the first time in generations, these worlds saw hope. Everywhere the same emblem was left behind, a blue and green planet, Earth. In the High Council, fear turned to desperation. The Emperor slammed his fist against the war table. "These are not raiders. This is not rebellion. This is war," he declared. "And if we do not end it now, the Empire itself will fall." He ordered the gathering of the largest fleet in history. Dozens of armadas drawn from every corner of the galaxy were summoned to crush humanity once and for all. But in his heart, even the Emperor wondered, was it already too late? Because for the first time in centuries, the galaxy's people were not afraid of the Empire. They were inspired by the humans, and inspiration was more dangerous than any fleet. Far beyond the borders of Imperial space, the human fleet gathered again. The dreadnoughts floated like mountains in the void, silent but full of fire. Messages from liberated worlds flowed into their command. The galaxy was watching, and Captain Hale knew this was only the beginning. "Once we hid in the shadows," he said to his officers. Now we step into the light. Let the Empire fear us. Let the galaxy see us. We are humanity. We endure. We return. The fleet prepared to move. Engines flared. Weapons came alive. The shadows that had hidden humanity for centuries were gone, and the Empire, for the first time in its long history, trembled. Everywhere, from the crowded streets of the core worlds to the quiet farms of the Rim, people spoke of the same thing. The humans had returned. They had not come with promises nor with endless speeches. They came with action. Imperial fleets burned, chains broke, and the banners of Earth began to appear on liberated worlds. For the first time in living memory, the Empire seemed weak. In the high archives of Aloria, the oldest records of the Empire lay hidden. Most citizens never saw them. Even many nobles were forbidden to look. Only scholars and archivists, watched carefully by guards, were allowed to touch the ancient texts. But now, by the Emperor's order, the archives were opened. Admiral Creven walked through endless halls of crystal tablets and glowing records. His sharp eyes scanned the walls as he followed an old archivist deeper and deeper. Dust hung in the air, a reminder of centuries of silence. At last, the archivist stopped before a sealed chamber. He bowed and spoke softly. "This is the place, Admiral. The war against humanity." The doors opened with a heavy sound. Inside lay the truth the Empire had buried. Creven stepped forward and activated the first record. A hologram burst to life. It showed an Imperial fleet, thousands of ships strong, burning under the fire of human weapons. Massive dreadnoughts advanced through the void, their engines glowing like suns, their guns ripping holes in the Imperial line. The voices of long-dead commanders filled the chamber. "They adapt too quickly. Our shields are failing. Fall back." The recording ended in static. Creven clenched his fists. He opened more records. Again and again he saw the same pattern. The humans were never the strongest, but they learned faster than anyone else. Every time the Empire struck, the humans adapted. Every defeat only made them stronger. It was not power alone that had made humanity dangerous, it was their will. The final record he watched was the strangest of all. It did not show a battle. Instead, it showed silence. Imperial scouts had entered the Sol system after humanity's last stand. They found no ships, no fleets, no defenses. Earth itself was empty of transmissions, its skies dark. "It is as if they vanished," one commander reported. "Not defeated, not destroyed, vanished." The archivist spoke softly beside him. "They chose to disappear rather than kneel." Creven left the archives with a heavy heart. He now understood why the humans terrified the Empire. They had not been broken. They had been waiting. And now, they were back. While the Empire argued over old history, the humans wrote a new one. On the world of Terith, once a rich Imperial colony, billions lived under chains. The planet's vast mines produced resources for the Empire, but its people lived in poverty. For centuries, the Empire's soldiers kept them under control. Rebellions rose and rebellions were crushed. But one morning, the skies of Terith lit up. 3 human dreadnoughts appeared in orbit. They moved slowly, like mountains drifting across the stars. The Imperial garrison panicked. They called for reinforcements, but no answer came. Their fleet had been destroyed weeks earlier. The dreadnoughts gave no warning shots. Instead, they transmitted a message to the surface. "You are free." Human dropships descended. Soldiers in gray and blue armor marched into the cities, but instead of conquering, they dismantled the slave camps. They destroyed the chains. They handed weapons to the rebels who had once fought alone. The people of Terith wept. For the first time in generations, they looked to the sky with hope. When the dreadnoughts departed, they left behind no rulers, no overseers. They left behind a free world. The story of Terith spread faster than fire. Other slave worlds rose up, calling for the humans. And every time the humans answered, in the chambers of the High Council, chaos ruled. "This is not war," one noble shouted. "This is collapse. If the slaves rise, if the colonies fall, the Empire will break apart." "They are not just attacking us," another snarled. "They are undoing everything we built." The Emperor's voice silenced them all. "Then we will remind them who we are. If humanity wants fire, we will answer with storms." But even as he spoke, doubt lingered in his golden eyes. He could feel the fear in the room, smell it in the air. The humans had lit something the Empire had not faced in centuries. Rebellion mixed with hope. On the hidden human fleet, Captain Arik Hale studied the reports with calm eyes. He stood on the bridge of the Invictus surrounded by officers who had been trained all their lives for this moment. "More worlds call for our aid," his second officer said. "The Empire gathers fleets, but they cannot be everywhere at once. Every time they move to crush us, another world rises." Hale nodded. He looked at the glowing map of the galaxy before him. Red symbols marked Imperial fleets. Blue symbols marked the growing wave of rebellion. The blue spread wider every day. "Good," Hale said softly. "But we must be careful. We are not saviors. We cannot promise what we cannot give. We give them freedom, not rule. That is their fight to carry." His officers bowed their heads in agreement. The humans had learned from the past. Empires always crumbled because they demanded too much, ruled too tightly. Humanity would not repeat that mistake. They were not building an empire. They were building a chance. In the far reaches of space, a lone Imperial fleet tried once more to stop the humans. 20 battleships, 50 cruisers, and countless smaller vessels gathered near the world of Kalor. Their commander, Admiral Drath, was ruthless. "We will not fail," he told his captains. "The humans bleed like anyone else. They will burn like anyone else." The humans arrived. 5 dreadnoughts appeared against the stars. Drath laughed. 5 ships? Against hundreds? They are fools. The battle began. The Imperial fleet charged, filling the void with fire. But the dreadnoughts moved with calm precision. Their shields flared, their weapons answered. One by one, Imperial ships were cut down. Their formations broke. Panic spread. Within an hour, the mighty Imperial fleet was gone. Admiral Drath's flagship drifted, its engines destroyed. On his bridge, smoke filled the air as he watched the human dreadnoughts move past him. He expected them to finish him, but they did not. Instead, a single human transmission reached him. "Remember this. We do not fight for conquest. We fight because you left us no choice." Then they were gone. Drath sat in silence. For the first time in his life, he felt fear, not for himself, but for the Empire. The galaxy's balance had shifted. The humans had shown the Empire something it could not understand. Mercy. Where the Empire crushed, the humans lifted. Where the Empire enslaved, the humans freed. And that made them more dangerous than any weapon. In the streets of 100 worlds, the people began to chant a new name. Not the emperors, not the nobles, but one word spoken with pride. Humans. Deep in the void, Captain Hale stood before his crew. His voice was steady, carrying across the bridge of the Invictus. "The Empire remembers us only as fire and war. They think we return to burn them. But we return for more than that. We return to remind them that freedom is never lost, not even in shadows. Not even in silence," his crew answered with quiet determination. The dreadnought fleet turned once more toward the stars. The galaxy was beginning to remember, and the memory of humanity was fire. The Imperial High Council had never known fear like this. For centuries, the galaxy had obeyed the Empire. Armadas had crushed rebellions and star systems had bent without question. But now, with the humans returning, that control slipped through their fingers like grains of sand. Reports arrived from every sector. Imperial fleets once thought invincible had been destroyed. Worlds that had never rebelled now called for liberation. The Emperor sat on his golden throne, his face cold, but his mind raced. The humans were not just ships, they were ideas, symbols. They were hope made steel. Admiral Creven stood beside the Emperor, his gray skin tense under the council chamber lights. "Your Majesty," he said, "we cannot underestimate them. They are not fighting like normal enemies. Their fleets are fewer, but their coordination, their strategy, it is unlike anything we have faced. They fight as one." The Emperor leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Then we will teach them the meaning of defeat. Gather all fleets, every available ship, every veteran captain. We will crush humanity before they reach the heart of the Empire." But even as he spoke, the council murmured unease. Some had studied the humans' history, piecing together what Creven had learned. Humanity had adapted to defeat. Humanity had survived extinction. And now, centuries later, they returned stronger than ever. Fear was contagious. And the Empire, built on fear, now faced it themselves. Across the galaxy, the humans moved with precision. Captain Arik Hale stood on the bridge of the Invictus, surveying the stars. "The Empire will gather their largest fleet," he said. "They will come with everything they have. But we do not fight because we want to win. We fight because we must." His crew nodded. Every officer knew their orders. Protect liberated worlds. Avoid unnecessary destruction. and show the galaxy that humanity's return was not conquest. It was freedom. Still, they prepared. The fleet's engines flared as massive dreadnoughts moved into position. Smaller ships scouted the paths ahead. Communications ran continuously with liberated colonies sharing information and warnings. Hale turned to his second officer, Lieutenant Maradine. "They fear us," he said. "The Empire believes their numbers will win. But numbers alone do not define victory." Mara smiled faintly. "They also forget one thing. Humans never stop adapting." The first confrontation came on the edge of Imperial space, near the system of Valdor. Here the Empire had gathered their largest armada yet. Over 500 ships ranging from massive dreadnoughts to agile frigates. The humans had only 25 dreadnoughts, but each was enormous, each a relic of centuries of hidden technology, and each crewed by humans trained for survival in the void. The Imperial commander, Lord General Drax, was confident. "They are outnumbered. We will destroy them quickly." But as the fleets approached, Drax realized something troubling. The humans did not attack immediately. They moved as a single formation, shields raised, weapons ready, engines silent. It was a demonstration of discipline, not chaos. The humans waited. Then, with calm precision, they struck. Missiles fired in perfect coordination. Beams of energy cut across the void with pinpoint accuracy. Imperial ships found themselves targeted where their shields were weakest. Weapons overloaded, engines crippled. The humans were not just attacking. They were reading the battle as if it were a puzzle and solving it in real time. Within hours, hundreds of Imperial ships lay in drifting wreckage. The remaining forces scrambled in confusion, retreating where they could. Drax's voice echoed across comm channels. "Impossible! How can they—" But no one could finish the sentence. The humans had vanished again, leaving only silence. News of the battle reached every world in the Empire. Panic spread. Merchants abandoned trade routes. Governors ordered curfews. Even ordinary citizens who had lived comfortably under Imperial rule whispered in fear. "They are everywhere," they said, and yet nowhere. Former slaves, now freed by humanity, celebrated openly. Messages of gratitude reached the human fleet. On every liberated world, songs of hope replaced cries of despair. Children painted images of dreadnoughts in the skies not as weapons of fear, but as protectors. The humans were proving something even more dangerous than firepower. They were showing the galaxy what hope could look like. The Emperor could not ignore it any longer. He ordered his advisors to prepare the Great Armada, the largest collection of Imperial forces ever assembled. Hundreds of fleets, millions of soldiers, and billions of tons of weapons moved toward the human fleet. "This ends now," he told the Council. "If humanity survives, the Empire itself falls. If humanity falls, the galaxy will remember why the Empire is supreme." Even Creven felt unease. He had served the Empire faithfully for decades, but he could see the truth. The humans did not fight like other species. They did not rely only on numbers or firepower. They relied on strategy, courage, and unity. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and unyielding. The Council left the chamber with orders to mobilize. The galaxy held its breath. Meanwhile, Captain Hale and the human fleet prepared for the inevitable. They had trained for this moment for generations, hidden in secret bases, repairing ancient ships, building new ones, teaching tactics that no one else could match. Hale walked the bridge, pausing at each station. "Remember," he told his crew, "we fight not to conquer, but to defend. Every world we save, every life we protect, strengthens the galaxy. We do not become tyrants. We become guardians." Lieutenant Maradine nodded. "The Empire believes fear is their ally. But courage moves faster than fear." Hale smiled faintly. "Then let's move." The fleet formed its lines. Engines flared. Weapons hums filled the void. They were ready. The first clash of the Great Armada came near the system of Orvax. The Imperial fleet poured thousands of ships into the void, their engines burning like stars. The humans responded with careful precision, striking only where the Empire was weakest. Despite being outnumbered, they moved with perfect coordination. Their dreadnoughts absorbed fire, countered attacks, and never lost formation. Smaller ships carried out precise strikes against supply lines and communication hubs, crippling the Imperial coordination before the main battle even began. The battle raged for days. Each side inflicted damage, but the humans never panicked. Their training, discipline, and ingenuity turned the tide again and again. Imperial admirals began to realize what they were facing. The humans were not fighting like ordinary species, they were something else. They adapt too fast, one admiral muttered. They anticipate every move. By the fourth day, the Great Armada was in chaos. Ships collided in panic, fleets retreated to avoid annihilation, and the humans continued their advance without losing a single dreadnought. Captain Hale watched the reports carefully. He knew the Empire would regroup. They would send reinforcements stronger and larger. But he also knew the truth. Fear was spreading faster than fleets could move. Every battle, every victory showed the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. He turned to Mara Deen. This is more than battle. This is an idea. Every world we protect, every fleet we defeat reminds them that they are not invincible. And that idea cannot be destroyed by numbers alone. Mara smiled faintly. Humans endure, Hale nodded. Yes, and we will endure. Across the galaxy, the Empire's citizens began to speak openly of rebellion. Governors who had once enforced strict control now hesitated, unsure whether to obey. Merchants whispered of trade with liberated worlds. Soldiers began questioning orders, wondering if they were on the wrong side. Even within Imperial fleets, whispers of fear and doubt spread. The humans had not only destroyed fleets, they had broken confidence. The Empire was not used to being afraid, and now fear had settled in its core. In the High Council chamber, the Emperor sat in silence, staring at holographic images of destroyed fleets and liberated worlds. He could feel it, the weight of centuries of power slipping. The humans were showing the galaxy a new way, courage, unity, and the will to survive. For the first time in millennia, the Empire trembled. In the void, Hale's fleet moved silently past the remnants of the Great Armada. They had not celebrated. There was no joy in victory alone. They had work to do. Hundreds of worlds were still under Imperial control. Millions still waited for hope. Hale looked at the stars. The Empire will not stop. They will gather again. But the galaxy is learning something new. Humanity is back. Humanity endures. And every day we move forward, more worlds will remember that they can be free. The Dreadnoughts' engines glowed. The fleet moved like shadows across the stars. They were not just warships. They were a symbol. And that symbol burned brighter than any Imperial weapon. The Empire, for all its fleets and power, had learned a lesson too late. Humanity was not just a species. Humanity was a force, and forces like that could not be crushed. The galaxy held its breath. After months of relentless battles, the Imperial fleets were broken, scattered, and demoralized. No armada the Empire had ever built could stand against the human dreadnoughts. But the Emperor was not defeated. He commanded the last of his forces to gather near the capital system, hoping to make a final stand. The human fleet advanced steadily. Thousands of ships moved as one, their engines burning softly in the dark. Captain Arik Hale stood on the bridge of the Invictus, watching the Imperial forces grow larger by the day. "This is it," he said quietly, "the final confrontation. We fight not for revenge, not for conquest, but to remind the galaxy of what humanity represents. Discipline, courage, and freedom." Lieutenant Mara Deen nodded. "They will expect fear, fire, and chaos. We will give them something else." Hale's eyes swept over the fleet. The dreadnoughts were scarred from battles past, their armor bearing marks of ancient fights. Smaller ships, agile and fast, weaved around them, ready to protect the fleet or strike at weak points. It was a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Imperial forces awaited them near the capital system. The Emperor himself had commanded the strongest ships in history to assemble. 100 dreadnoughts, thousands of cruisers, and countless smaller vessels lined up in perfect formation, their weapons glowing in readiness. The Imperial commanders were confident. "We have them trapped," Admiral Creven said. "We will destroy them here and end this threat once and for all." But confidence is a dangerous thing. The humans did not panic, did not scatter. They moved forward as a single, unstoppable wave, calculating every maneuver, predicting every Imperial strike before it came. Then the first shots rang out. The battle began with fury. Imperial dreadnoughts fired beams of energy that could obliterate planets. Missiles streaked across the void, striking human formations again and again, but the humans anticipated every move. Shields flared, engines dodged, and weapons responded with unmatched precision. For every Imperial ship destroyed, another was disabled, captured, or forced to retreat. Communication lines failed as human fleets disrupted signals without targeting civilians or innocent worlds. The humans were proving in every action that power alone did not define a species. Intelligence, courage, and cooperation mattered more. Admiral Creven watched from his flagship stunned. "They fight differently," he muttered. "They are not like any other enemy we have faced. They do not fear. They do not retreat. They adapt." Instantly, the Emperor's eyes narrowed. He realized that this battle was not just about fleets or weapons. It was about will. Humanity had survived centuries of oppression and disappearance. They had returned not because of hatred, but because they refused to be forgotten. In the midst of the chaos, the human fleet reached the outer defenses of the capital world. Imperial guns fired relentlessly, but the Dreadnoughts pressed forward. Dropships carrying human soldiers descended to the planet, landing near the major military bases. These soldiers did not attack civilians. They did not destroy cities. They moved with precision, targeting only the Empire's core military installations. On the capital world, citizens peeked from their homes. They had lived their lives under fear of the Empire, taught to obey and never question. Now they saw a different face of power. Humans who fought to protect, not to dominate. Children ran to the streets waving small flags painted with the blue and green symbol of Earth. Finally, the human fleet reached the Imperial Palace. The Emperor sat on his throne, his golden robes shimmering. Behind him, hundreds of loyal dreadnoughts prepared to strike. But the humans did not fire. Instead, a single transmission cut across every channel, reaching every world in the Empire. It was Captain Hale's voice. "We do not return to conquer. We do not return to enslave. We return to remind the galaxy that humanity endures. We will not kneel. We will not fade. And neither should anyone else." Silence followed. Even the Imperial fleet paused, unsure how to respond. It was not a threat. It was a message. The Emperor rose, his face pale. "They speak of ideals," he muttered, "and yet they wield weapons that could destroy this world." Hale's fleet spread across the system, positioning themselves to defend, not attack unnecessarily. Smaller human ships moved in to disable Imperial weapons without harming civilian areas. Soldiers on the ground moved quickly, disarming enemy commanders and taking control of military hubs. The humans showed restraint, discipline, and strategy. They were not just warriors, they were guardians. For the first time, the Emperor realized he had underestimated humanity. He had thought they would return for revenge. He had expected chaos, fire, and destruction. Instead, he saw courage, intelligence, and unity. In the council chambers, nobles and generals whispered among themselves. "They do not fight like the others," one said. "They inspire. They do not conquer, they uplift. And the people follow them willingly." The Empire's foundation, built on fear and obedience, began to crack. On the surface of the capital world, Hale met with leaders of liberated colonies. Together they worked to ensure peace. The humans did not claim the throne. They did not impose their rule. They only ensured that the Empire's citizens would no longer live in fear. Soldiers and citizens watched as humans repaired what had been destroyed, helped the injured, and established communication lines. Their actions sent a clear message. Power without purpose is empty. Strength without compassion is meaningless. In space, the final Imperial fleet realized resistance was futile. Hundreds of ships surrendered. Others retreated into the unknown. The Emperor, seeing the futility of continued conflict, finally spoke. "Enough," he said. "The humans. They have changed the galaxy. Perhaps it is time to negotiate." Negotiations began immediately, but the humans did not ask for dominion or tribute. They asked only that the galaxy be free from oppression. The Empire, battered and fearful, had little choice. They agreed. Captain Hale addressed the fleet one last time before departing the capital system. "The Empire will rebuild," he said. "They will recover. But the galaxy has seen a different way, a way where courage, intelligence, and unity define the future. Humanity returns not to rule, but to remind everyone that they have the right to stand tall." The dreadnoughts turned toward the stars. Their engines flared, moving silently but powerfully. The liberated worlds watched as the fleet vanished into the darkness once more, leaving hope behind. The galaxy had changed. Humans had returned not to conquer, but to show the strength of spirit, the power of will, and the value of freedom. In the years that followed, stories of the human fleet spread across every world. Children grew up learning of the dreadnoughts that had returned from the shadows. Citizens of the Empire who had once lived in fear now spoke openly of courage, resistance, and hope. And on Earth, long hidden and protected in the void, the fleet rested, prepared, and ready. They had proven a truth that no empire could erase. Humanity endures. Humanity inspires, and humanity shapes the galaxy not through fear, but through spirit. The galaxy would never forget the return of humanity. The memory of their courage burned brighter than any star. And the humans, once thought to be shadows, had become legends,